In this video, I'm going to show you how to complete the Punnett squares in the Thanksgiving turkey activity. You can notice the directions are up here for you. For the first one, you need to set up and complete the following monohybrid Punnett squares to determine the color of each turkey feather. We are going to do these all together so that you can understand how to complete. This is the Punnett square. After we complete all the squares, step number 2 is saying to color each feather in the circle that is circled in the Punnett square. So you can see this is feather number 1. You can see that this is circles. So whatever combination we get there, we are going to, on the last page, see where this is feather number 1? That's what you're going to color in. So the circle here for feather number 1 is going to correspond to feather number 1 on the last page. After you do that, they want you to cut out each piece carefully for assembly and then glue the tail feathers starting with feather number 1 at the bottom near the turkey's feet. So this, for example, would be number 1 and so forth. Okay. Let me just give you a brief overview since some of you are unfamiliar with Punnett squares. Punnett squares are a way to take the gene combinations of a mother and a father to determine the possibility or the chance that their offspring might inherit some of these traits. So once again, when we're looking at a Punnett square, it's not saying that for sure if they have 4 babies that each baby is going to have one of these. Depends on what we end up getting from the actual results of our Punnett square. We're saying this is a chance or the probability or the percent chance that it could happen. You'll notice there's a couple of things going on here. They gave us a key up here. And when we're talking about genetics and genes, the capital letters are the dominant genes, which means that those are the ones that are going to tend to cover any of the other traits. The lowercase letters are the recessive genes. So if you have a dominant gene with a recessive gene, the dominant gene will cover this physical trait. So the offspring will produce or present the color of red feathers, even though they have a recessive trait. Okay. So when we're looking at this, I want you guys to realize here that they've given us that the male has 2 capital R's. So that means the dad is going to give to the offsprings 2 dominant traits, which would be red feathers. And the female has 2 lowercase r's. So those are recessive traits. So the female has pink feathers. The Punnett square, what we're going to see is when they get together and they reproduce, what are the chances that their offspring could inherit which specific traits? I'm going to show you how to do the Punnett square. So when we're looking at this, we take the top row here. I'm just going to take this R, and I'm going to just put it in each of the boxes below. So this R goes here. This R goes there. So I just took this R and I put it in each of the boxes going down. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here. All right. So now that I've done these 2, I'm going to go across. So this is the female's qualities or traits that she is passing on to her offspring. So this little R now is going to go across. So R, and then this little R is going to go there. This R is going to go here. And then this R is going to go here. You know that you've done it, at least you know that you have the right number of letters in there if you have 2 in each box. Because remember, the male or the father is contributing genes as well as the female. So we're looking at the combination here. So it looks like actually all of the boxes match. Do you see how they all are big R, little r? So if I were to have a dominant red feathered father reproduce with a recessive pink feathered mother, all of their offspring 100% of the time, because each box, if you think about it kind of like percents, 25, 25, 25, 25, all of these 100% of the time, no matter how many offspring they have, are going to come up with the combination big R, little r. Now, if you will notice, once again, remember I mentioned that the capital letter is the dominant trait. It will cover the recessive trait when it's presented or what it physically looks like. This is called the genotype. And what we're going to talk about here, this is the phenotype or the physical trait. So once again, when we're looking at what the alleles are, that's these letter combinations. So the letters are what we would refer to as an allele. Okay. So when I look at this big R, little r, I know big R is a red feather and little r is a pink feather, but I know since it's a capital letter, it's going to cover up the pink. We will not see the pink in the offspring. So this color feather is going to be red. Now remember, once again, feel free to pause this video at any time to rewind it so that you can go back and watch it again if you're confused. But I'm going to keep moving on, so you can pause it at any time you need to. Now, the next thing that I'd like to show you is now that they've given us, they tell us what the male and what the female combination is of the turkeys, but they didn't set it up for us. So let me show you how to do this. So the male is going up here. He is big B, little b. So that means he has one dominant trait and one recessive trait to pass on to his offspring. So you can notice here that big B stands for blue feather and little b stands for purple feather. So this is our genotype once again. The father is big B, little b. However, his phenotype, or what he's going to look like physically, is going to be blue feather because this dominant trait is going to cover or hide the recessive trait. Although the dad still has the genes inside of him to pass on purple feathers. Now we notice that we have the female, or the mother, is little b, little b. So she presents purple feathers. So the father looks like he's blue feathered, even though he has this recessive trait, and the mother is purple feathered. So we're going to do little b, little b. Now that we've got the Punnett square set up, all we're going to do is the same process. So this letter is going to go in each box below it. So I'm going to do big B, big B. And it's a general rule of thumb just to put the capital letter first. I'm going to take this B and I'm going to do little b, little b. So I just took this letter and went straight down. The next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to do the female. I'm going to add her traits to the possibilities that their offspring could have. So this little b will go straight across in that box. I'm going to take this little b and add it to this box. And then I will do this here. This little b goes there, and this little b goes here. So now when you look at the possibility, the chances of what their offspring could be is you have big B, or little b, I'm sorry, you have little b, little b. So these two are the same. So since there's two, there's a 50% chance that their offspring will be big B, little b, which would be blue feathers. And there is, since there's two of these, there's a 50% chance that they will be little b, which is purple feathers. Now, when they did get together and mate, their one offspring that they had little b. So when I look at that, since that is the recessive trait, because it is the lowercase letter, the key tells me that this baby will have purple feathers. So the feather color here is purple. So even though the father had the dominant trait, this offspring, there's a 50% chance that when they get together and mate, there's a 50% chance that their babies could have purple feathers. Let's take a look at feather number 3. So feather number 3, they're saying the male is big Y, and the female is little y. So I'm going to set up the Punnett square first. Remember, the male goes up top. So I'm going to do a big Y and a little y. And then the female is over here. I'm going to do little y. I'm giving it a little tail just so that it's easy to define between my capital and my lowercase y. So when we look at up here at the key, the capital Y, which is the dominant trait, represents that the turkey will present yellow feather color. The lowercase y represents that the turkey will present orange feathers. So if I just take the male and I go straight down again with my letters going straight down, and then I take my little y and go straight down. So that's just the father. I don't have two allele combinations in there, so I need to make sure that I do the female going across. Little y, and then going across little y. So in this example, when we're looking at this too, it's very similar to this. If you'll notice, when you have a parent that has a dominant and a recessive trait that mates with a parent that is both recessive, you're going to get the same kind of combination where you get half of them being big Y, and the other half being little y. In this example, remember little y is representative of orange feathers. This offspring will have the genotype, little y. The phenotype or the physical characteristic it's going to present are going to be orange feathers. Now on to feather number 4. We're looking at the male now having 2 recessive traits of little g, which is aqua feathers. So the father presents aqua feathers since he has 2 recessive genes. The female this time has big G, little g. So she has green and aqua feather genotypes. However, she's presenting green feathers because the capital letter means that it's the dominant trait. It's the one that's going to cover this up. So I'm going to do the male still first. I'm going to go straight down. I'm going to go little g. I'm going to take his other trait he contributes, little g. And now I'm going to go across with the female, big G. And I'm going to go across with the second one, little g. Now in this example, you can see that there still is a 50% chance that they will be big G, which is green, or little g, that's a 50% chance, which will be aqua. However, the one that is circled is the heterozygous version of big G, which if I look up at my key, remember once again, a capital letter is representative of a dominant trait. So we will have a green feather. So the feather color in this offspring will be green. Moving on to the next page for feather number 5. When we look at the male here, the male is capital R, little r, and they've given you the key up here again, which is nice. I have to keep going back to the other page. And the female is little r. Now we did a combination with red and pink flowers before, if you remember from feather number 1, but feather number 1 is a bit different because the male was double, or what they call homozygous, the same, double dominant. This one is going to be different. Now the male still is presenting red feathers, but he carries the recessive trait. So let's just take this and go straight down again. Big R, little r. And then I'm going to take the female and I'm going to go straight across. Little r. And her second trait, little r. When I look at that this time, the offspring that's circled is little r. Those are recessive traits. And since there's 2 of them, the only color that will be present, or the phenotype, the physical characteristic, will be pink. So this feather will be pink. Feather number 6, you have your male that is big B, little b. And now you have your female as big B, little b. I'm going to take this trait. I'm going to go straight down, big B. I'm going to take this trait and go straight down, little b. I'm going to take this trait for the female and go across now, big B. I'm going to take this recessive trait and go straight across, little b. Now in this example, when both of the male and the female are portraying actually blue feathers, so they will both present blue feathers, you can see that you're going to get a much different combination. But this example, since it's circled with a capital B and a little b, that means that the dominant trait is showing up this time. So feather number 6 is going to be a blue feather. Once again, remember, you can always pause and go back and rewind if you need to. This time you have the male that has little y. So that means that he is presenting, or his phenotype is 100% orange. So his orange feathers for feather number 7 is orange. The female has 2 capital Y's, so she's presenting the yellow trait. Let's see what happens when they mate. We can see the possibility for feather number 7. So I'm going to bring my little y down. Same thing here, little y down. And then I'm going to go across here. Capital Y, this Y, capital Y. So now you can see that when you have a pure orange feather mating with a pure yellow feather, all of their offspring are going to be capital Y, little y, which means once again, the capital letter is the dominant trait. So that means that the turkey feather for number 7 is going to be yellow because there's a capital letter in that combination. All right, feather number 8. The male is big G, little g, and the female is big G, little g. We're going to follow the same process we have in the other 7 feathers. We're going to take this big G and go down. Take this little g, go down. I'm going to take this big G and go across now. I'm going to take this little g and go across. So now I have 2 little g's with the recessive trait here. Both parents, because they have a dominant trait, are going to have green feathers. However, this offspring, because there's a chance, you can notice that there's only 1 box of little g, so there's a 25% chance that their offspring could have aqua feathers, and that is actually what's happened in this case. So this feather color is going to be aqua. Think about it similarly if you may be a child in your family that has blue eyes and both of your parents have brown eyes. They carry the trait, the recessive trait of blue, but because they have the dominant trait brown, that's why they don't present it or you don't see it. But when, just like in this similar example, when two parents come together, they have the chance of having an offspring, a 25% chance of having an offspring with blue eyes. So the aqua feather is another example of that. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take these colors, remember feather number correlates to the feather color, and you're going to color the feathers. So if you look at this, feather number 1 should be red. Feather number 2 should be purple. Feather number 3 should be orange. Feather number 4 should be green. Feather number 5 should be pink. Feather number 6 should be blue. Feather number 7 should be yellow. And feather number 8 should be aqua. Now this is the time where I'd like you to either use your colored pencils, crayons, markers, and color them accordingly. I realize that aqua and pink are not necessarily a normal color that comes like in a marker box. So do your best to try and replicate those colors. I hope you enjoy doing this activity.